Hello everyone and welcome to this session. Today I am going to talk about MICAT examination which was conducted across India and this examination gets you admission into MICA Ahmedabad, which is regarded as one of the most attractive options for anyone who desires to make a career in the field of marketing and especially of course advertising industry. That's a dream destination for anybody who aspires to get into that sector. But having said that, a couple of years back they also started a regular PGDM program. So MICA is no longer an option only meant for people who want marketing. Others can also opt for it. In fact, their PGDM program focuses a lot on business analytics also. So if you are a business analytics aspirant also, then MICA would be an ideal place to target. Now this particular examination that got conducted today is called MICAT 1. MICAT 2 will also happen after a few weeks. Remember, a student has the permission to write MICAT exam both the times, and in case anybody writes it on both the occasions, then best of 2 will be considered by MICA Ahmedabad. Now let's talk about the examination that took place today. Now today MICAT 1 was conducted and it was conducted across India, but unfortunately there was a technical glitch, and because of the technical glitch the examination got delayed. The students were waiting anxiously in their respective centers, and the feedback that we have got was that the examination started only after 1.5 to 2 hours. So almost 2 hours delay happened, but once the examination began after the delay, then onwards the exam was conducted in a very smooth manner without any further glitches. Now this examination has a very interesting pattern. So let's have a look at this year's pattern of MICAT exam. There were no surprises with regard to the pattern of the exam. It remained the same as it was last year. There are 3 sections in MICAT exam. Section A comprises of psychometric questions. There are 150 questions that students are supposed to complete in half an hour duration. Then section B, which consists of descriptive test, where 4 questions are given to the students and they are expected to type in their answers using the keypad provided, and for this they are given 25 minutes. So 4 questions to be done, 4 tasks to be accomplished within 25 minutes. Then section C begins, which is basically aptitude test, which again comprises of 4 subsections. You will have divergent and convergent thinking, 20 questions come from there. Then quantitative ability and data interpretation, another 20 questions were given. Finally, verbal ability 20 questions, and general awareness has only 10 questions. So 70 questions basically appear from section C as such. So all in all, if you observe, 224 questions are there in this year's MICAT exam. Same was the case last year also, and the total duration was 2 hours and 15 minutes. So 135 minutes was the duration of the examination. Now let's have a look at each of the sections individually. Let's start with psychometric test. So friends, psychometric test is essentially a test of your personality traits. So this particular test, it frames questions in such a manner that when you answer those questions, MICA Ahmedabad would get to know what kind of a person you are, what kind of traits do you have got, what kind of potential do you have. That can be ascertained with the help of this test. Now the challenge in this section for the students today was 150 questions were given and the students were expected to complete them within 30 minutes. That implies, if you calculate, the student is expected to do 5 questions within a minute. So 5 questions to be done in hardly a minute. That means 12 seconds per question. Now because it comes down to 12 seconds per question, the student invariably ends up revealing the true answers, because the first thought, first idea that you get would be the genuine one. You can't fake your first idea, and that's the one you are expected to mark. Now what MICA has intelligently done is, in the directions they have told the test takers that they expect them to attempt every single question. They said it's very important that you attempt every single question. And in case you leave any question blank in psychometric test, you will get 0 for that particular question. So invariably everybody tries to attempt all 150, and that's where the true picture of the candidate evolves. Now remember, psychometric test doesn't really have correct and wrong answers. But psychometric tests will have ideal and non-ideal answers, and the option which will be considered ideal would be according to the requirements of MICA Ahmedabad for their program. So for their program, they need creative individuals, imaginative individuals, people who can think out of the box, people who have leadership potential, people who don't run away from responsibilities. So these are some of the traits that were tested in this psychometric test. Broadly speaking, there are two types of questions. Majority of the questions out of those 150 had many options. In fact, they had 8 options. And the options given for those majority of the questions were strongly disagree, totally disagree, strongly disagree, slightly disagree, and of course you had got slightly agree, then you had strongly agree, then you had totally agree. So starting from totally disagree to totally agree, there was total of 8 options. Very few questions were true or false type also, wherein only 2 options were given, true or false. So these questions had to be attempted by the student, and they expected them to attempt all the questions. They encouraged them to attempt all the questions. And remember, psychometric test usually is a qualifying test. That means if you fail in psychometric test, they generally don't consider that person in the subsequent aspects of shortlisting. Then section B started after half an hour, and it was a descriptive test. Now there were 4 aspects to it, or 4 questions that were there. These 4 questions together you had to finish within 25 minutes. And because the duration given was only 25 minutes, it becomes a challenge, because many of the students may not be very much used to typing using a keypad. So if your typing speed is slow or you're not very comfortable, then this challenge will become even bigger challenge, so as to speak. So that is where this particular section had a different kind of a flavor compared to all the rest of the exams that you people would write in this particular academic year as such. Now, what were those 4 questions? Let's quickly have a look at that. The first question essentially was an argumentative based question, wherein a topic was given and the test takers were expected to write 2 answers. The first answer, they needed to write 3 arguments in favor of the given topic, and the second answer, they were supposed to write 3 arguments against the given topic. Right? So these were the 2 questions. Then essay writing was done. A topic was given and they were asked to write an essay. I'll share all these topics in a minute. And then there was also a story writing, which is actually USP of MICAT. The most fun part of MICAT, the most challenging part of MICAT is the story writing. So one story also needed to be written in MICAT exam. For writing this story, what MICA generally does is they give you 4 photographs. Same was the case this year. And they were all random photographs without much of interconnection. And the student was expected to write a story in the exact order in which those pictures were given. So that was a challenge for the students. Now let's go a little deeper into this. The first challenge was to write 3 arguments in favor and 3 arguments against the given topic, and the topic was, there is merit in the hierarchy. See, as far as this particular question is concerned, friends, writing arguments in favor of this would have been slightly easier for the students, but when it comes to writing 3 arguments against this topic, it would have become slightly more challenging. So that was the challenge, because keep in mind, you have only 25 minutes to do this. When I say do this, I mean to say all the 4 questions together, 25 minutes. So keeping that in mind, keeping time constraint in mind, you can conclude that writing points against the topic would have been far more challenging. Once this was done, and remember, each of these 4 questions, the word limit was specified as 300 words, maximum limit. But having said that, because only 25 minutes were given, hardly anybody would have been able to write all 300 words. Majority of the people would have ended up with far lesser number of words than 300, which is absolutely fine as long as the content, as long as the ideas are very logical, practical, and the way you have organized them is pretty much acceptable, then you don't have to worry about the number of words that you have written. The second challenge is to write an essay on the given topic, and the topic that was given was extremely interesting. The topic was present ways in which young managers can promote hierarchy in their organizations to make them more efficient? Again, this is not an easy topic. This topic is something that most of the test takers would not have really thought over. So on the spur of moment, coming up with ideas and putting that ideas on a in a very systematic manner, organized manner, wherein you end up with an introduction, with a body and a conclusion, that would have been a challenge for the test takers. But people who have practiced a little bit of essay writing in their homes, they would have managed this much better than the ones who might have ended up writing essay without any preparation. Finally, you had a story writing challenge. In this, 4 pictures were given to the test takers. There was a picture of suitcases being arranged, another picture where a gentleman is standing on middle of the road with a market in the background. The third picture was that of a slice of butter with an insect on top of it. And the last one, of course, was a camel. It was a golden color camel, but it was made up of metal apparently. So these were the 4 photographs, and you had to write a story wherein you need to connect all the 4 photographs in the order in which they have provided it. Now, writing a story is not the challenge. Coming up with a creative idea and generating a story and ensuring that all the photographs get covered, that, ladies and gentlemen, is not easy. So this question actually is a difficult one unless and until you have written some mocks. Now, time students who have written the mocks that time has provided, and if you have also written the official mocks that MICAT has provided, you would have found this much more doable than the ones who skipped that. Now, moving on to section C of the examination. Here, there were 4 subsections in the section C, aptitude part. There was no sectional time limit per se here. You had a total duration of 80 minutes, and this 80 minutes you can utilize in whichever manner you want, and you had a total of 70 questions to deal with. Overall difficulty level of this section could be classified as moderate to difficult, and this one is an important section because this one generally would have a cutoff. Now, let's talk about each of the subsections individually. The first one is divergent and convergent thinking. Now, this section had a variety of questions. Majority of the questions were from logical reasoning, but you had some questions from critical reasoning also. You had word association questions, which are a hallmark of MICAT exam. In fact, there were 4 word association questions which really tested your vocabulary skills. And these 4 questions can be classified as moderate to difficult. Now, most of the questions that appeared in logical reasoning, they can be classified as moderate or moderate to difficult, with some exceptions. For instance, the series question that was given was comparatively much easier to do, especially if you have practice with time material. On the other hand, the critical reasoning question based on assertions and reasons, it was pretty difficult question to deal with. Binary logic question was moderately difficult, whereas the miscellaneous questions, there were a couple of miscellaneous questions, set based number questions, they were easy to moderate. Remaining questions, blood relations and symbols and notation question was there, which could have been done well if you would have practiced symbols and notations topic. It can be classified as moderate difficulty level. Whereas analogy based questions, 3 of them were there, coding and decoding 2 questions were there, and they were moderate to difficult. And here I would say the importance of practice is what would have made a difference. Overall, this section can be classified as moderate kind of difficulty level. It's not a difficult section, moderate to difficult or moderate kind of a section. And all in all, in this 20 questions, a good student would have been able to attempt around 10 questions, little more, little less, around 10 attempts out of 20 can be classified as a good performance. Quantitative ability and data interpretation. Even though the name has got data interpretation, but usually there are only 4 questions. Same was the case this year. 4 questions were there based on DI. It was a SID-based model, which was moderate difficulty level question. Arithmetic and algebra had equal breakup of 6 questions each. Arithmetic questions, they were from variety of topics, such as you had a simple interest, compound interest based question. There was also a question based on partnerships. So there was variety of questions. Time and work question was there, which was an extremely easy question to deal with. The partnership question actually had a statement which was a little difficult to comprehend. In fact, you can even go on to the extent of saying it should have been expressed with more clarity. It had almost a glitch in the way the statement was framed. And it was moderately difficult kind of a question because of that reason. The Venn diagram question in the quant was slightly more difficult to deal with. And we had geometry and mensuration also. 2 geometry based questions were given which were moderate difficulty level. They're not difficult per se. Pure maths questions were in fact difficult ones in this section. Overall, you can say it was moderate to difficult kind of a section. And in this section, a good student would have been able to attempt anywhere around 7 to 8 questions in this particular section. Verbal ability part. Now, verbal ability had again the usual kind of questions. You had reading comprehension. 5 questions came from reading comprehension because of the way options were framed. Because remember, across section C, whether I am talking about divergent and convergent thinking or quant and DI or verbal ability or for that matter general awareness, across all the subsections, the number of options kept varying. That was interesting. Some questions had 4 options, but some questions had 8 options also. And because there were 8 options for some of the questions, the difficulty level went up a notch. Because remember, if you have got so many options, especially in a topic like verbal ability, then the tendency of you committing an error would be a little more. So that's what made it more challenging for the students, not the questions themselves, but the fact that you had so many options to decide from. Para odd man out, 1 question was there which was moderate. Para formation in fact was the easy question, easy to moderate kind of a question in this section. Sentence completion was there, 2 questions were there which were moderate difficult level. Error identification questions were actually the easy ones out here. Para summary, couple of them were easy. Then passage based, vocabulary based questions were pretty easy to deal with. I would say these 6 questions should have been the focus of any person. Then inference based question, 1 question was there which was difficult. Closed test was moderately difficult. Missing sentence was moderately difficult. Totally 20 questions, and we can classify this section as moderate to difficult. This was slightly more difficult than last year. Not extremely difficult, but slightly more difficult than compared to last year's exam. Coming to general awareness. Now this is where 10 questions appeared, and more than half of these questions dealt with corporate world, business world. So there were questions based on advertising campaigns, slogans, right? There were questions based on corporate logos, companies' logos, brand ambassador related questions were there, mergers and acquisition based questions were there. That means anybody who would have been keeping an eye open about economic world, business world, when they read newspaper or when they read MBA Education and Career magazine that Time has provided to its students, they would have found this section extremely manageable. But what made it challenging again was the fact that some of the questions had more than 4 options, and the options also were designed in such a manner that it led to a little bit of confusion. That's the reason I won't say this was a very easy section. I would say it was moderate to difficult kind of a section. A good student would have been able to attempt anywhere around 4 to 5 questions out here. Now, as far as cutoffs are concerned, we believe that this paper compared to last year was almost to the similar difficulty level, but we will peg it as slightly higher difficulty level than compared to last year on account of verbal ability and to some extent based on the way options were framed in general awareness also. So we would say that we expected cutoff to get a call after you have cleared the rest of the criteria that MICAT has kept in place. I would say in section C alone would be around 28. Plus 2 or minus 2, you can take it for granted. So around 28 is what we expect to be the cutoff to expect a call for the next round of selection process, which will include group exercise and personal interviews. All right. So with this, we have come to the end of this session. Thank you all for attending this session.